We'll go live now.
Order the meeting, regular meeting of Monday, November 24th, 2025, 5 p.m. First on the list, the adoption of the agenda. I'm going to ask if we could move item number 14 under item number 5.2 into closed session.
You should be item number 13.
Okay, number 13.
Please. And further to that, I have no additions or deletions.
Can we get a motion from the floor to adopt the agenda?
Where is that being moved? Sorry.
We move to number 5.1. Or 2, sorry, 5.2. Because the delegation presentation is also enclosed.
Oh, okay.
So if we can get a motion to accept the agenda.
I can make that motion. Move that council adopt the agenda of the November 24th, 2025 regular council meeting as amended.
Okay, all in favor? That is carried. The adoption of the minutes of the November 10th, 2025 regular council meeting minutes. You all had a chance to review them. If there are no changes or alterations to them, can someone make a motion to adopt that? Please.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the November 10, 2025 regular council meeting as presented.
If there's no more discussion, all those in favor? And that is carried. Number 4, there's no public hearings. And we will need a motion to go into closed before item 5. And Councillor Carr will be making that motion to go into closed. All those in favor? We will now go into closed and we'll return after we are done our items in closed.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the meeting. We are now on six bylaw readings.
We need to make a
Oh, I'm sorry, we have to make a motion. So who is making the motion? Robin, or Councillor Erickson, go ahead.
Motion being, move that council direct administration to send a letter to Sagatawa Friendship Society as discussed in closed session.
I agree.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Seeing none, carried. So now we'll move on to six bylaw readings. Number one, bylaw number 2183. That would be with Roxanne.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Okay, so the first item is bylaw number 2183, the line of credit. The town of Peace River is seeking 3 readings of the attached line of credit borrowing bylaw number 2183 to ensure appropriate cash flow is maintained for operations as necessary. In the past, we've had a number of large capital projects, and having the line of credit assists us with managing our cash flow if there's a delay with receiving our federal or provincial grants or debentures if we have gone that route. So to maintain our positive cash flow, administration recommends bylaw 2183 to continue maintaining the existing line of credit of $6 million in the event that we need temporary bridge funding. And one of the features of the revolving line of credit is that this has to be passed annually. So we're not asking for a new line of credit. We are asking for the bylaw to keep the line of credit that we currently have access to. So the first option is to provide first, second, and third readings to bylaw number 2183 to maintain the line of credit, so that we can have that credit facility available. There are no disadvantages. If we don't use the funds, it doesn't cost us anything. The second option is to decline to approve bylaw 2183. And the disadvantage is that if we do have a large or significant project, or if we need some temporary bridge funding, we won't have that credit facility available. Thank you.
Any questions? Is anyone prepared to make the motion?
Sorry. Question. When you were talking, you were referencing bylaw number 2183. But this that we have here says bylaw 2184. Are they different or the same?
There are 2 bylaws that I'm bringing forward. 2183 is the line of credit. 2184 is the next one on the agenda regarding the MasterCard line of credit.
Okay, thank you. I missed that one. Sorry about that.
Are there any more questions?
Not a question, just a comment. This for everybody that's new. This is standard practice. It comes every year.
Okay, do we have anybody willing to put their motion on the floor? Councillor Deuce,
I move that council give first reading to bylaw number 2183, line of credit borrowing bylaw for 2026.
is there any other discussion on that? If not, all those in favor? And that is carried. Will there be any interest in putting another motion on the floor for the second reading? Clerk Ford.
Yes, I put a motion on the floor that council gives second reading to bylaw 2183, a bylaw to establish a line of credit at the Alberta Treasury Branch. Did I get that?
Any other,
Those extra words.
any other questions or discussion on that? All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any interest in making the motion to put the third reading on the floor?
Sure, I'll move that council place bylaw number 2183 for third reading.
Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? That is carried. And the final motion. Mr. Carr?
I would move third reading of bylaw 2183, a bylaw to maintain a line of credit at Alberta Treasury Branch.
No discussion. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor? And that is carried. Oh, I'm confused here. Okay, so we'll move on to number 2, the bylaw number 2184, MasterCard borrowing bylaw for 2026.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before you is bylaw number 2184, which is the short-term borrowing for the MasterCard. As Councillor Ford stated for the last one, this is another housekeeping item that comes every year. We are requesting 3 readings of the attached bylaw, being number 2184, the MasterCard borrowing bylaw for 2026. We use the MasterCard to facilitate smaller purchases where it's inefficient to use purchase orders, places where purchase orders are not accepted. Pretty much anytime you book a hotel room or a conference or do any kind of online purchasing, and a MasterCard is required. We use them on a regular basis to ensure that things happen as they should. So we are requesting that you pass bylaw 2184 so that we can continue to have that option of using our MasterCard available to us, and that you approve the short-term borrowing. So option 1, provide first, second, and third readings to bylaw number 2184 to establish the short-term borrowing at Alberta Treasury Branch for the town's MasterCard account. Option 2 is to decline to approve bylaw 2184 for the short-term borrowing for the MasterCard account. And we request that you give first, second, and third readings to bylaw 2184.
Any questions? Anyone interested in putting the first motion on the floor? Councillor Deuce?
I would move that council give first reading to bylaw number 2184, MasterCard borrowing bylaw for 2026.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Anyone interested in moving the second reading?
I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2184, MasterCard borrowing bylaw for 2026.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Anyone interested in giving, Councillor Ford?
Yes, I put a motion on the floor, Madam Mayor, to place bylaw 2184 for third reading.
All those in favor? And that is carried. And the final motion. Mr. Carr?
I would move the council give third reading to the bylaw number 2184, bylaw to establish short-term borrowing at Alberta Treasury Branch for the town's MasterCard account.
Any questions on the third reading? If not, all those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to number 3, bylaw number 2185, utility rates bylaw for 2026.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm bringing forward the utility rates 2026 bylaw number 2185, which has the proposed rates for the utility services. This is a first draft. We're bringing it forward to open the discussion. A little bit of background. The town of Peace River's goal for our utility accounts was so that they would be self-liquidating. So over the past couple of years, we've been working towards transitioning to a user pay full cost recovery model. As part of this transition, we engaged Intergroup, which is a firm specializing in utility rate modeling, to do a model review in 2023, which was completed in 2024. And we do intend on giving you guys a presentation on the rate model with the workshop materials, and that is scheduled for next week. So we're bringing this forward to open the discussion, but we will be going further in depth on the water rate model next week at a workshop. But some of the recommendations from the report prepared by Intergroup was to target the full cost recovery both for operating and capital for our water and sewer utilities. And as part of that, when they ran their calculations, it was determined that over 5 years, it would be an average of 9.7% increase to water over the 2024 rates and 10.1 on the sewer each year in order to achieve the level that we would need for full cost recovery. The second recommendation was to introduce mid-tier customer categories for the water and sewer. We did do that. So we split the commercial up into commercial 1 and commercial 2, mid-commercial 1, mid-commercial 2. And when we did that realignment, some of the fixed charges were already a little on the high side. So we do have a couple of classes where the fixed charges don't change very much for a couple of years until everybody else catches up, just to right size everything. Part of the recommendation was also to ensure that the water, wastewater, and the stormwater rates are all split and maintained in separate funds, which we have done, and we show the water rates separate from the sewer rates, both for the fixed and the variable. New to this year is splitting out the storm sewer rates. So we are working towards the recommendations of the model. The third recommendation was to have an overhead cost allocation, which was proposed. And we have been working towards that one as well. And the fourth is to establish capital maintenance and reserves contributions through the utility rates. This was the large deficiency in our previous rates before us. We were not establishing the capital reserves for the water and the wastewater. And it meant that we didn't have that pool of funds set aside for when things needed to be fixed and replaced. So the draft utility rate bylaw for 2026 continues to follow the recommendations that were received from the intergroup review and the model that we received at that point in time. I do have some examples regarding what a typical customer would have. I do want to point out that I did have a minor error in there, in that the storm sewer charge, I have it at 48 cents, but it should be 48 cents per cubic meter. So that does increase the rates over what's shown in the charts, a slight amount. So 48 cents per cubic meter. So for the residential, using the typical 15 cubic meters, the total estimated monthly charge would now be $212.17, which is an increase of 6.94% or $13.77 over the 2025 rate. I will be adjusting and correcting that should this go towards second reading. The small commercial at 36 cubic meters, the change over 2025 would now be $21.24, or 5.29. Medium commercial 1 would have a total under the 2026 rate for 50 cubic meters of $759.71, which is an increase of $66.68 or 9.62%. Commercial 2, at 50 cubic meters, the total would be $1,005.02, which is an increase of $54.22 over 2025, or 5.7%. And the large commercial at 400 cubic meters, their average monthly at that rate would be $4,191.87, which is an increase of $478.18, or 12.88%. Like I said, I will be correcting that and updating that when we bring it forward for second reading, if you so decide that it will come forward for second reading. The most financially prudent thing to do would be to bite the bullet, increase the rates to full cost recovery. But that would be a huge increase all at once for our residents and citizens. So we've gone for a 5-year phased approach. And that's what these rates reflect, is the next annual increase for that. Solid waste, as brought before you at the November 10th meeting, with the changes to our recycling and with our new contract, we are anticipating that the solid waste expenses will decrease by $64,000 a year. So we are recommending that we decrease the monthly solid waste fee from $27.50 to $25, which will continue to maintain our contribution to the solid waste reserve, but give a little bit of a break to our citizens, pass those savings on. So the options that we have put before you, option 1, we would ask that you consider providing first reading to bylaw number 2185, utility rates for 2026 as presented. This will open the bylaw to the public, provide opportunity for feedback, and give consideration to amendment prior to the second and third readings. This aligns with our goal of full cost recovery model for our water and wastewater and storm sewer, and recognizes that we need to phase this in over time. And it also will provide our residential users a $2.50 a month reduction in solid waste fees. The disadvantage, of course, is that everybody's utility rates are going to go up. Option 2 is that you decline to provide first reading to bylaw 2185 utility rates for 2026 as presented, and provide us with direction to maintain the 2025 rates in 2026. The advantages, utility rates would remain stable for our residents, they'd remain the same, but we would not be moving towards our goal of full cost recovery, and would continue to shift the burden of capital cost replacement to future generations. Option 3 is that you provide first reading to bylaw 2185, but as amended. And this again would not align with the municipality's goal of full cost recovery. So I am open to questions if you have any.
Councillor Carr?
You said it's a 5-year phase in. How far along are we in? Or would this be year 3?
This would be year 2.
This would be year 2.
2025 was the first year. We got the model in 2024. Implemented for the first year for 2025. This would be the second year of following the model.
Councillor Duce?
So I have a couple questions, mostly regarding the reserve funds. So you mentioned that we don't have much sitting in reserves to repair stuff that needs to be fixed. What are our current reserves sitting at?
I'd have to look those up. I
Okay,
don't remember them off the top of my head.
and does administration have a goal of what we would like to have, what we'd like to have sitting in reserves? Is it 10 million, 20 million? Cause I'd like to have a goal that we're aiming for.
The goal is to, go ahead.
So,
Roxanne.
one of them is.
Oh, sorry.
Is better? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the goal when the utility rate model was developed, we actually took all of our future capital that we knew about at the time, fed it into the model, assumed we would have a provincial and federal contribution to the project, so it wasn't all being funded by the ratepayer or the municipality. And use that capital plan, that long-term, is what we think we're gonna need over the next 10 years and really rough strokes. To say, this is what that contribution needs to be. So it wasn't based on targeting a specific amount in the reserve, it was based on the capital plan that we think we're gonna, and it does include some bigger projects on the horizon that we know about, like a new lift station to replace the one down in the Shasberry area, the wastewater treatment plant project, some smaller upgrades at the water plant, including the generator and things like that.
And if I might add to that, as our capital plan changes, the balance that we want is going to fluctuate.
My only concern, if I can just add to that, my only concern is when we don't assign a number to it, it just kind of gives free license to keep upping the rates as much as we can. And my concern is with, especially with large user, like, are we really comfortable giving somebody after the 5 years a $7,000 a month water bill? Like, it seems astronomical to me. That's my only concern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, I know it is really somewhat scary to give first reading to a bylaw on utilities that has an increase of close to 10%. We wanted to get it on and get first reading, just so we can get it out there into the public can speak to you all about it. Our intention is, as mentioned, next, following next council meeting, the orientation session is going to be solely on utility rate model. We're gonna walk through the entire model, so you have opportunity to see it, see what's involved in it, see the future capital projects and why it's so critical that we continue the journey that we're on. And then on December 8th meeting, we will have a similar discussion, not as in depth, but we will have a similar discussion in public to review once again the utility rate model, which has been out there in the public. You know, we had public engagement last year, sessions. So we just wanted council to have opportunity to be fully educated as best we can, because it is complicated. Then on the 8th, we will discuss it again in public. And at that time, we will either ask for second reading as presented, or council would have opportunity to amend that to different rates if you wanted to change it from that percentage. And then we would look for third reading and final reading on the December 15th meeting to be able to go into effect January 1. So there'll be lots of time for council to gain an understanding, to talk to your ratepayers, the ratepayers to express. But we really are looking for first reading to get that ball rolling.
Are there any more questions?
I think that just answered my question, but, so if I'm understanding it correctly, then I'm not gonna use that thing because it buzzes. First reading is just gonna open it up for discussion for the public.
Right.
If this council chooses at a future meeting that it wants to maintain the status quo, council will have that right to do so at that time, or do a different increase
Yes.
or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on the first reading? Is anyone willing to put that motion on the floor?
I move that council give first reading to bylaw number 2185, utility rates bylaw for 2026.
Are there any more questions or discussion on that?
As presented.
If not, all in favor? Thank you, carried,
That was as presented.
as presented, yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 7, unfinished business, there is none. Number 8, current business, Peace River Library Board member resignation with Director Bell.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report before council this evening is a bit of a process item for new members of council. Council appoints board members to committees of council. And we also like to, in turn, track their resignation. So then there's a clear path of who has been appointed and when they have resigned, and we accept the resignation of those particular individuals. So before council this evening is an item related to the library board. An individual, an appointee, Maxine Elter, has resigned from the library board, and it's presented for council's acceptance, not necessarily approval, because the resignation has taken effect already. Again, it's for tracking purposes only. So recommendation before council is to accept the resignation of Maxine Elter as of October 2025.
Any questions for Director Bell? Anyone want to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Douce.
I would move that council accepts the resignation of Maxine Elter from the Town of Peace River Library Board.
All those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
Number 2, Peace River Adventures request for MR waiver with Director Fisher.
Good evening, council. Administration received a request that was sent to council asking that we waive, or that council waives a municipal reserve fee of $23,231.60. That was a condition of the land subdivision decision that was issued earlier this year by our development officer, our manager of planning. And I just want to give you guys some background on municipal reserve. To clarify some information. So in the Municipal Government Act, we have the authority as a municipality to require landowner undertaking a subdivision to dedicate a portion of the developable land as reserve lands. Reserve lands, we often just simplify it and call it municipal reserve. But it could be used for a number of purposes: municipal reserve, school and municipal reserve. And then there's also a list of other uses that the land could also be used for under community services reserve, which includes like public nonprofit daycares that are enabled by the town or things like that. As long as there's an agreement with the school boards. So for simplicity's sake, we just call it municipal reserve. Under the Municipal Government Act, we're required to keep that funding separate, accounted for separately. And if we have any cash in lieu payments, that gets accounted for separately. And any interest that's earned stays with that principal payment. There are exemptions to the obligations of a landowner to provide land for reserve or cash in lieu. But in this case, the parcel is either too small or it's not specifically for an agriculture purposes. So you can be exempted if it's a quarter section, or if it is over 20 acres, but only being used for agricultural purposes. We can basically ignore that. Alternatively, we can also waive it if it is too small a parcel to actually account for it. as a general backgrounder, when we're issuing a subdivision as a subdivision authority, we cannot issue a decision unless it is consistent with our plans and municipal statutory plans and our bylaws. If there's any waivers, we actually have to go through and make sure that it is consistent. So either they have to amend the municipal development plan or whatever, so that we can issue a decision if it is to do something different than what we're supposed to. Locally, we have the municipal development plan, provides good guidance to the development authority when we're making decisions, specifically for reserve lands, section 11.3. As a condition of subdivision, the town shall require that 10% of the developable lands be dedicated as municipal reserve as provided for under the act. 11.3.2 is quite explicit as well. When they're taking municipal reserve from a parcel in accordance with an we are requiring it that it be taken and approved with a recreation master plan, except for the following circumstances. In this case, it is a commercial site. So we will take cash in lieu or reserve shall be required for commercial, industrial, and other non-residential subdivisions, except where buffers from incompatible land or uses for are called for in the establishment. Basically, they're shall statements. As a administration, that means it is required and we must follow that letter of the MDP when we're issuing a subdivision decision. Should in the municipal development plan means that it is required, but we have a little bit of discretionary as administration in how we achieve that, right? So we can take this, but we could look at these alternative forms and consider them equivalent. And may means that we entirely have discretion. So in this case, they're shall statements. We had to require the collecting the 10% and required to take cash in. The decision was issued in June 2025. The appeal period closing on July 2nd, 2025. Prior to issuing the decision, we met with the applicant. We told them what the basis for the calculation was based on. It was based on the purchase price for the property they were purchasing and wanted to subdivide. That it was much less than they would get for the appraised value because we just had gone through it with the Lions Park campground. And so we had a very recent appraisal in hand that we could compare to. We calculate MR, municipal reserve contribution based on the entire parcel. That's consistent with the MGA and the intent of the MDP. We did provide the applicant with numbers for the portion that they wanted to purchase and as part of the subdivision that they were purchasing and the total parcel, the remaining portion, so that they could have a discussion with the person they were buying the property from. Whether or not they did that or whether or not they were successful, that's entirely up to them to negotiate it. It was also made clear that we could not waive the requirement, right? Because we can't issue a subdivision decision that's not consistent with our MDP. We did make an amendment to the MR clause in the decision. I don't know if we've included the actual decision, but it did allow us to enter into an agreement to pay the MR contribution. So that would allow us to pay it over time if it was a cash flow issue for the applicant. As administration, we typically can include payment terms of up to 5 years through a development agreement. Anything longer than that requires a motion of council and we believe it requires a borrowing bylaw as well. And similar to what was done for the ski hill, I believe that was issued. Municipal reserves are important for us to collect. It's not just about parks, it's not just about green space. It also covers things as we grow, if we need to build a new fire hall, if we need to build a new school, if we need to purchase land to buy one of those through a development agreement with somebody, because what we have is not appropriate. And I think as a community like ours, we are growing right now. I think that there's a very good chance that if we had to build a school, it would be in a different location where the schools are currently located. And we would probably have to build a site And under the new provincial requirements, we're required to do the servicing for that site or make sure that it's serviced appropriately, that it is accessible. So there's a big cost that's being pushed onto municipalities, and failure to collect these monies causes a problem in the long run. It's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. So, the long and short of it is that there are other avenues that we've been trying to support this company that's been doing good things in the community. They've had a number of grant applications through the Economic Development Committee, through our grants programs. And they will be eligible. They're doing a bunch of construction. If that goes through and they get finished that project, it does meet the criteria for the tax relief bylaw, the commercial tax incentive bylaw that was passed earlier this year. So there's a vehicle for them to get some tax relief on the future taxes related to that new development. So we haven't said we're doing nothing and we don't want to do anything. I just want to be clear about that. And we did offer alternative payment. The ability for alternative payment if we have a cash flow issue, because they had quite a bit of expenditures at the time. There are a couple options here on the table, because it is separate accounting required for collecting cash in lieu from municipal reserves. We can't just issue a refund. Can't really just waive the requirement either. So if you want to waive the requirement as they're requesting, we would have to amend the NDP. Have them reapply, and I would let that the existing subdivision lapse, and we would go through the process again for subdividing plans. We would issue a new decision that would be consistent with the new MDP if it was amended. That's option one. Another option, if you wanted to keep things moving, the existing approval moving, would be to issue a grant in the amount of MR reserve. That would come out of our tax supported operating reserve, cover either the whole or a portion of that municipal reserve contribution. Again, it's got to be accounted for separately, right? So to keep that money in that pot, we have to give the money from a different pot, right? If that's what council would like to do. If you wanted to just give them the money back out of the municipal reserve fund, that would be considered a disposal. And we would require to go through a public hearing process from that. That's part of the VMG. So those are kind of like your three options. The fourth option is do nothing and just support the decision that was made. There was a subdivision appeal period. They did not apply for an appeal on the conditions that were issued as part of the permit. And that was part of our meeting, as I said. Don't like it, appeal it, see where that goes. That's a quasi judicial thing. They would have told us to do one of these things to be able to issue the payment. So those are kind of your three options. My recommendation as administration is to do nothing and just hold to the decision that was issued.
Any questions for Director Fisher?
That payment plan option presented to them, is that tax free, and is that still on the table currently?
Yeah, we haven't dealt with the payment terms yet. But it would be 5 years and it would just be whatever our borrowing cost is, right? So we would give them the same rate that we're paying on our line of credit or whatever.
Councillor Hughes?
So currently they pay taxes on this site, right? Sorry. They pay taxes on this site currently, yes? They're not tax exempt, right?
I haven't, but I don't know if that's the case going forward.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor Carton.
Now, this subdivision is CN splitting their land. So it's not for any development and so on the, other than the existing campground, correct?
but doesn't waive the requirement.
No, I'm not saying that, but yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
That is.
Now, would our bylaw, and this is just a question, not be more directed to people that are building subdivisions and selling off lots and that sort of thing?
No, it's not, it's just subdivision. This is all subdivision.
Ms. Parsons?
Do you mind if I expand on that a little bit, Director Fisher? So I believe under the MGA that it's just, that's the municipality's time at subdivision to be able to collect these lands or monies. So the MGA gives specific times during developments or things like that, where the municipality is able to act on these things that they need to do. And so subdivision, regardless of what that is that time to be able to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it just sort of, I understand what you're saying, but it seems like sort of a one-off. It's not a, say, something that would have been considered when this development, or when this bylaw was introduced in the MGA and so on.
If I may add to that, MR is usually taken at the time of subdivision, depending on what, at what stage or how many acres out of a, section or quarter section is being taken. However, there are some times that you would defer the, MR payment, MR dedication to future subdivision. So in this case, if it had been taken in the previous, it will not be required again, but if it has been deferred, it has to be paid. And if you don't take it at the time of subdivision, there is more work to try to track it and make sure that you take it. But it is a requirement of the NG, and you cannot waive it, and especially because our NDP also says we must get it, then we cannot waive it. We have to.
And any more questions? If not, is anyone willing to make a motion?
And may I just, that motion on the agenda is specific for if council is okay with defeating this motion and not, otherwise, I think we would have to reword it to not say waives the requirement, but reword it to say that we're going to grant, provide a grant from a specific reserve or allow for a refund just based on Director Fisher's presentation. I don't think the motion as worded will work if we adopt that motion. It will be okay if we defeat it, but not adopt it. That makes sense.
That's right. So just to expand on that, if council wished to make a payment to them, then we would need to be specific about how that payment is to be made, whether we are being directed by council to amend the NDP to allow them to reapply, or whether we are having a public hearing to do a proper disposal under the act, or whether we are issuing a payment from the tax supported operating reserve.
Councillor Boyd?
Yeah, my gut feeling's telling me that that we have to, I think we have to do something with this. Like I understand the comment like about subdivision and that, however, this property we dealt with last year, it's very, very unique. It has to stay as a so-called campground. And it's the only one we have in town. Everything else is either on that hill or that hill. And I think by doing something, it'll help this project move forward. And I think that the outcome at the end of the project is gonna draw a lot of tourism into this town.
I agree with Councillor Ford. I think it's one of the things that you're trying to do to promote business in town. And my recommendation would be to go with option number 2.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I like option number two as it says that, to issue a payment in the form of a grant from the private supported. But I think we can go with option number three and look for another means to support this business. So like it does not appear as if we are not taking the MR. There may be other means where we can support it, but the municipal reserve has to be taken so that we do not set some precedent that will not be able to kind of defend in the near future. This is, from planning perspective, I think this would be the best approach. We like the business, we want to support and encourage them, but let the MR be paid, let's follow what we have in our MDP. Then maybe there is a tax or, other grants that they can apply for if they qualify for. That's it.
I don't think that addresses the problem right now. I think if you're trying to encourage business to come into town and the comments or come down, it could be seen as unfair or preferential to other business or developers who have paid, that the whole problem is a lot of the developers have been shut down and so they don't want to come into town, period. I think that they should do something that's proactive for them, and you've got a chance to do so on this one. And the ones that have been declined before will understand and they can approach the things differently on the next time when they do a project.
Is there any option? Like I just trying to wrap this all around my head here. Is there any option of, I'm gonna use the word defer until the project's completed and running? Or is that something we can or cannot look at?
If the applicant hasn't entered into an agreement with administration for the payment terms, by, I think it's a year, we can do an extension. But there is a point where, they have to do it, or the subdivision doesn't get completed, it doesn't get endorsed. So they will have to enter into an agreement and pay the amount that's listed in the decision. They offset by a grant or not. Kind of a separate conversation in this one, I think.
So basically, the only way that they would get, if we go forward and leave it like this, they could come back and ask for a grant through the business, grant, that's about it, eh? That would be.
No, I don't think that would be,
I don't even
but
think they
that's not the appropriate program. I think this would be council giving a special grant. Because they wrote this over, and council saying, we want to give you guys money, we can't really waive the requirement, but we want to give you money to do this. That's sort of the easiest way forward, if you would like to do that.
Councillor Malvo.
I'm just kind of concerned that if we go that route and say we're giving them this special, I understand we want to support our businesses. But what tomorrow another business comes and we don't give, then we'll have to explain why do we give A and we don't give B. They have the, they have the option of going into an agreement to pay over some period of time. If they sign that, and that's at the time of the registration of the subdivision, it goes on the title, that can be enforced. But, well.
Yeah, and I just want to expound on Councillor Babalo's concern there about other businesses, is that we're currently in discussions with at least one other business about an MR contribution, and they all add up. Like, these are not, like, if there was less than $1,000, this would be a different conversation. This one's 20, the other one is quite a bit larger than that. And these conversations have a long-term impact for the community down the road, right? We're not talking, like, if we're talking 10 years or 20 years, those values at today's interest rates, that number gets bigger each year.
Are there any more questions? or
Sorry,
if anyone prepared?
my final, contribution. I'm saying this because I've seen this happen before, as a subdivision authority with the city of Granbury. I know what this can cause if we go this route, like, giving them all this, preference. I mean, it's a business, it's a growing business, but 23 or how much, 26,000 will not kill the business. It may slow them down, and that's why we're giving them the opportunity to pay over time so that they are not slowed down. But writing it up or providing grants, it may create something that we may not be able to follow through. Thank you.
I'll just say one thing, I mean, I support this business, I think we'd all like to see them. You know, if it was easier to just waive it, I think I would agree to do so, but I agree with, Councillor Babalola, it's kind of a slippery slope to start approving that just for future businesses, kind of wanting the same thing. I do like the fact that we've offered the payment program over 5 years. I think that's a suitable option, as well as, like you mentioned, the tax grants that they could see in the future as well. So that's kind of all I have to say.
Councillor Ford.
Well, Councillor Davaloa, you're actually suggesting payment over time?
Yes, if they're willing to go into that agreement, but they will have to sign the development agreement, and it will go on their title like a caveat. So like they can't eventually they will pay it. In case they sell the land, whoever buys the land buys the agreement with it.
Because there's a, what's the term word I'm looking for, a caveat on that? That it has to remain a campground or a park? Wasn't that the condition of sale? So that you can't.
There's an operational component for a number of years, but
We could,
I don't.
Yeah, like you cannot build an apartment building on that lot ever. It has to remain as campground.
No,
park,
not
if I remember.
necessarily, yeah, no,
It's direct control, right?
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, direct
yeah,
control.
that's, yes, the memory is popping up now, yeah. Plus, my apologies. Another component would be there are some limitations to that site due to its proximity to, CN property, so there are some limiting factors, but, they're not so rigid that there couldn't be some changes in the future, but
Yeah, I'd be fine with the payment.
Are there any other questions or discussion, or is anyone willing to put a motion on the floor?
So
Ms. Parsons?
I'll just recommend that if council is leaning in the direction of defeating, you could move forward with the motion as presented on the agenda. However, if council wants to consider a different option, such as giving the grant, that we change the motion to be that council directs administration to issue a payment in the form of a grant from the tax supported operating reserve to Peace River Adventures in the amount of $23,231.60. That just because the wording of the waiver motion brings in different complexities behind it.
I don't think there are.
Do we have the option of just doing a different motion? As to Councillor Babalola's comments about a payment?
Just to be clear, that's already on the table with the
Pardon
decision.
me?
The payment option is already on the table with the decision that was issued. It's part of the decision terms and conditions that they are required to enter into a development agreement with the town for the payment of that municipal reserve. And we have the ability as administration to do it over 5 years without needing a specific motion of council and bylaw.
So,
It's already part of the.
okay, so my understanding is then if that's the route we wanna go, we have to defeat the existing motion and then administration would do their thing.
Correct.
Okay.
And if the payment terms are not acceptable and they want a longer payment term, I was very clear with them that I would bring that forward to council for a decision.
So is anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll move that council each the following motion, that council waives the requirement for reflection of funds for reserve lands pertaining to subdivision decision SUB 2025-01.
Are there any other questions? Any other questions or discussion on that before we vote? Ms. Parsons?
I just clarity, so is it your preference in this situation, just how you worded that to have the negative motion and you're voting in favor of a negative motion, or you were just clarifying that your perspective is you're looking at defeating this motion? Correct?
Correct.
So if you're voting, voting against, if you don't vote in favor, we'll proceed with the 5-year. Yes.
Okay.
Read the motion that's on the table then.
So the motion on the table is moved that council waives the requirement for the collection of funds for municipal reserve lands pertaining to subdivision decision SUB 2025-01.
Okay, everyone clear on that? And all those in favor? All those opposed? And that is carried.
Sorry, guys.
Next up, number 3, snow and ice policy overview, again with Director Fisher.
Thank you. This was supposed to be one of our workshops, and I just wasn't able to get things in order because I wanted to bounce a couple things off of CAO Miller first. So I just want to provide some preliminary highlights on our snow and ice management policy. The intent of this is really not to make big changes or take us down a path that is having us make big changes. We're already in snow removal season and snow clearing season, already trained by staff. We're already rolling with some things. Big changes will create a lot of confusion at this point in time. Am I able to hop on here? Do I have to share or does it just automatically share?
I can do the share.
So I guess the first thing that I just want to point out is we do have a bunch of this information on our town webpage on roads and infrastructures, roads and sidewalks, and there's still an easement. So everything, almost everything that I'm going to cover, with the exception of this error right here, which was working before, is pretty much covered online and is available for the public to review. So in our snow clearing policy, we've defined sort of what our winter operations period is. So between November 15th and April 15th, it kind of aligns with Transport Canada's airport guidelines, because we used to run the airport, right? So during that time, my direction to my operations staff is that the sander should be out at least every day doing road checks. So even on the weekends, even on the holidays, that sanding machine should be getting around to the roads for at least a couple of hours. On the weekends and statutory holidays, it's my on-call staff member that comes in and does that. The policy makes a distinction between clearing or snow blading and removal. That's pretty common. So clearing and blading is literally just pushing the snow to the sides of the road. Removal is where we actually bring out the trucks and pick up the snow and take it to another location. So in the policy itself, we are primarily doing clearing is the way the policy is worded. So any snowfall event, we should be having staff go out and start blading the road, right? Usually it's my on-call person in the sander that heads out, starts working on the priority roads. That work is typically supposed to happen between 8 AM and 5 PM. In practice, I typically operate outside those hours. I will often have my staff keep to regular working hours, meaning 8 hours a day when we're able to. But I will often shift my crew a little bit so that they're out a little bit before the traffic gets heavier and starting to come back in before traffic gets heavier in the evening. But that's the expectation and policy. Every time it snows, we get out and we start blading roads between 8 AM and 5 PM. Removal itself is in the policy only when we have a big snow event, so 200 mils, so it's like 8 inches. It would take a couple mils around it there. That's when we're supposed to be doing removals, right? We don't do snow removal after every snowfall. We're not set up to. It's very expensive. We only have one dump truck in our fleet. So any other dump trucks that we need to do removal and get the snow blower out and all that, requires us to use contracted services. We also have the ability when the roads get bad enough as operations crew, we can also trigger additional cleanings or removals of the snow where we pick it up we're budgeted for 4 of those each year. So when I say budgeted for 4 of those, that means my contracted service, because I can't do removals with just my own staff. Need contracted trucking, that's the limiting factor in how fast we can move through. We budget about $300,000, so it's $75,000 of removal and trucking costs primarily. We also budget about $100,000 a year for sand and salt that goes on the roads. So we order most of it at the beginning of the season and pre-mix it in the salt and sand shed. As we need to, we go and fill up the materials. If we run low, typically I can have additional materials here in 2 to 3 days and have it starting to be mixed. So as we go through the season, if we need to buy more, we typically can and get it mixed up appropriately. It's a little slower to mix in the winter than it is in the summer, but ideally we are ordering just enough so that at the end of the season, we're just about done. We're not sitting there with a big stockpile that carries on to next year because it kind of gets hard over the summer and clumps up and it's kind of a pain in the butt to rework and make sure it's consistent. So ideally we use as much as we can, have a very little stockpile. And I remember Deputy Mayor Carr last year, you commented towards like the end of March when we were talking about the sand shed was looking a little bit empty. And it's on purpose, right? We don't, it gets comfy in the summer with the humidity, right? On removal, it takes us about 3 to 4 weeks to do full removal on all the municipal roads, right? So when I started and we were talking with our staff last year, they're like, oh no, we can do it all in a couple of days. I was like, okay, track it. Track it, every road that you do, and show me every day what you get done. So it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for us to get through all of our roads. The trucking contractor, our ability to get trucks and the return trip to the snow dump, that's our limiting factor. Yes, Deputy Mayor Carr.
But last year, we did not have our plow operating for most of the winter, is that correct?
We did not.
Do it with a loader?
We did not have a snow blower, but the limiting factor is trucking, right?
Okay.
If I can get 7 or 8 trucks,
Yeah.
the snow blower
With
makes
the
sense,
snow
right?
blower, it's much faster,
It's
yes.
faster, it's
So
still,
would
it's
that
still
still
more
be
expensive.
3 to 4 weeks with the snow blower?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, the haying more for those removals than it was last winter, right?
Yeah.
That's the trade-off. When we're actually doing removal, we will typically work longer days because we're working with contractors. They get paid by the hour. They still have the morning startup and the organizational meeting, and the safety things to go through, it's not work rest. So we actually work longer days just to make better use of the time They pay the same amount, same rate, whether they work 12 hours or whether they work 8 for the contractor to be able, it's just a bit more efficient that way. Also, helps complete the removal a little bit faster. Oftentimes, we don't get enough time between the events and the snow events and snow accumulation to also include the alleys. It's on there. So as we go through priority 1, 2, 3 on the maps, once we're done all of those, then our operational, that the policy says it will go in and start clearing and doing removals on alleys. Usually we reset by the time we get enough snow, or by the time we're getting towards the end of the removal, we have to reset. So oftentimes we'll just end up triaging the alleys until close to the end of the season. Just the really bad areas, right? So like it gets really, when it's melting, it gets really rotted up inside alleys. We'll send somebody out to kind of level them out, out of policy as an operational concern. But we just don't get around to that part of the policy often. So, oh, yeah, go ahead.
So you're saying then that we don't do the back alleys, the alleys until the very end? So if there's like even a foot of snow, we don't do them till the last priority?
They are in a policy, they're normal working hours after everything else is done. And if we get a snow event that triggers us to start over again, like we get a big event or a whole bunch of accumulation, we start over oftentimes before we actually do the full. So it's just a function of policies, and it's an annoying thing with snow clearing and snow removal policies that happens everywhere, right? You start clearing the snow and you get the event that starts. You start clearing it, you get another bigger event, and you've actually got to restart because of the way the policies are, right? On the highway itself, so there's a number of highways in town here, so 7, Shaftesbury Trail, because I actually don't know the number off the top of my head. 744, 743, 640, 648 is Shaftesbury Trail. So main highways, Main Street, Shaftesbury Trail, the Weaverville Highway, those are Alberta Transportation's responsibility for clearing. They just do clearing, they push it off to the side. You will get complaints as councillors from some residents who have sidewalks in front of their houses. Just giving you a warning. Heads up right now, they're not the town's responsibility to clear those sidewalks, it's still their responsibility as owners. We are responsible for removal if they are required to, like if they're, we have a really big year of snow and there's massive snow drifts at the side and they need to do removal for safety purposes. We are required to do that. It's a cost shared exercise with Alberta Transportation. If we do any removals on Main Street, that's supposed to be a cost shared exercise as well along the parking lanes.
So I know of a house that happens to, so whose responsibility is it then? Is it then it's the provincial or the provincial government that whoever highway that is that their responsibility, or why does it fall to the sidewalk?
It's the landowners, through our bylaw. Yeah, he's quite local, but the ones along Shaftesbury Trail are most effective. Because their sidewalk is like right on the highway. It is the landowner's responsibility to do clearing there. So whenever, if they are out before the highway plows come through and they clear it and then blasts all the snow back onto the sidewalk, it is theirs. And they're not supposed to be clearing the snow onto the highway. It's just a back and forth match all winter. It's supposed to go on their grass. You're supposed to shovel the snow from the sidewalk onto the grass, not on the road. So that's a little bit of nuance. So on Main Street here, transportation just kind of does the driveway. We come through and do the parking lanes. Again, the standard is clearing until we're at a removal trigger, or as operations, we say, hey, it's time to do a removal because not able to store all of it safely. So that means clearing it to the side of the road. Most of our costs for the winter operations are actually incurred January to March. So usually the beginning part of the season here, it's not always the case, but usually it's a little bit lighter in terms of expenses. With most of our expenses coming in January to March period and most of our efforts. There's a parking ban in town, alternating in different areas based on, I think it's based on the garbage collection, you know, and when we would do snow clearing to try and avoid it. It is always in effect. What changes in the policy, if we don't advertise it, is our ability to enforce it. But it is always in effect. So if I send my staff out and they get ahead of whatever we've signed for the day, and they still need to keep clearing or keep doing the snow removal, my instructions to them is just plowing the vehicles if they're still on the street, because it's always in effect. You will get complaints about that. I'll also get complaints if I don't sign it, and if I sign it and I don't show up, you will just get complaints. We are working pretty hard, and as staff work probably the hardest they do all year during snow and winter period. We do have a lot of competing priorities with the operations department. So the same crew that does snow removals is also the same crew that responds to flooding concerns in spring. As the culverts are backing up and people are complaining, it's the same crew that goes on flood watch if we've got any advisories coming in from the province during freeze up or breakup. It's the same crew that does all the water breaks and road clearing. Sweeping, setting up the barricades for the events. All of these things it's the same group of staff that are addressing all of these concerns. Particularly in the spring when we were dealing with freeze thaw conditions and culverts that we were having to manage. It's also the same period of time that we were on water breaks. We will call in extra contractors where we can, but things tend to slow down. It's true. Aside from being online here, we do have on our webpage here, on our maps at GIS. We have this public facing web map system. This is a common question we get. Where is my street in terms of priority? So. Can I just move this, Kayla? Wait, true. Okay. Okay, so this is just for clarity. It's all publicly facing. So you would go to the Town of Peace River webpage, and I have left it. You go roads and infrastructures, maps and GIS, web map system or information map that takes it to the same spot. We have snow bleeding and plowing map here. And if somebody wanted to look at where the parking bans are, so there's sort of an A day, B day, they're identified on the map here. If you wanted to see what our roads are by priority, red is priority 1, yellow is our priority 2, orange is our priority 3, and we try to work through as best as possible in order: priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. It's one of the things that drives the community mad sometimes, and it drives my operators mad to have to work in an area and then pick up the blade and go and move to a different area. But that is the requirement in our policy. We work through it in order. So we go priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. As best as possible. There are areas in future, I'm probably going to ask you to make some changes, because there are areas where to get the equipment from one priority 1 area to another priority area, one area, I got to drive through a priority 2 road. I might as well just drop my blade and do the work at the same time. those are refinement kind of things that would happen. But I don't think that this is the time to make those kinds of changes. I certainly think that in the spring, or like just after spring, like once we've got the sweepers out and we're we're talking summer activities, that's the time we should be talking about updating the snow and maintenance policy. So if you're keeping tally, we have the $400,000 worth of contracted services and materials and supplies. If we wanted to look at cost savings measures, we could reduce the number of snow removals that are required to be budgeted for. If council wanted, that would save about $75,000 a year in the budget line item. I think that very much in practice, if we ran out of money, we would come ask for it anyways. So it's whether council wants to proactively budget for it and then have maybe not use all of it if we don't have enough snow, or they come back and asking for more money if we have a whole bunch of snow in a given year. That's the big stuff. I think that's the big stuff on the snow policy and clearing without going into a bigger discussion. I'm certainly open to any questions if you guys have them, especially in the mornings.
Councillor Ford?
Yeah, would you mind touching base really quickly on just for new council? Like, I know we talked about it a couple of years ago, but some of the trucking can be like long hauls just simply because we only have certain locations where you can unload at. Can you touch base on that really quick?
Yeah, we only have one approved snow dump location officially with the province. It's a registered site. If we're removing in one part of town and taking it to the snow dump, that return trip is quite a long distance. I think it can be close to a 20-minute return. So if I don't have enough trucks and the equipment sits there and waits for trucks, I have too many trucks. So it's a constant balancing act. We keep a number of contractors sort of pre-approved on an on-call list. They provided us their WCD information, their trucking information, their rates, insurance information. I did get a lot of complaints last year from a couple of smaller vendors who were not on our list because they didn't have insurance and they refused to get it. It's the cost of business. We're not a charity organization. We have to control our risks too.
So that unload location is on town property, Weberville Road.
It's in the north end.
It's in the north end.
I got the
Okay.
north end one approved by the province. I
Okay.
can tell about one, the other one here.
But we don't dump up Weberville anymore?
We did last year, but we won't be going forward.
Okay.
Are there any more questions? Will anyone be interested in making a motion? Go ahead.
I move that council accept the snow and ice policy overview for information.
All those in favor? And that is carried. On to number 4, Assessment Review Board member appointments with Ms. Kim Windon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am requesting that we appoint 2 members to the Joint Regional Assessment Review Board. Under section 454 of the Municipal Government Act, we must establish an assessment review board. And this is to hear complaints regarding property assessments. We have an agreement with 5 partnering municipalities to have a joint regional assessment review board. And right now, we had 2 members. One has declined to recertify. The other one, Larry Herniak, has agreed to be certified. He has completed the training. However, his appointment to the board has expired, so I'm requesting that we reappoint him to the board. He is scheduled to sit on a panel hearing town assessment appeals coming up next month. When we found out that the one member chose not to recertify, we did put it out publicly to request additional people willing to get the training and be part of this board, and we received 2 applications. Alan Schramm and Rochelle Gaudette. The motion for you is we are requesting that council reappoints Larry Herniak to the Joint Regional Assessment Review Board for a 3-year term. And that council appoint Alan Schramm to the Joint Regional Assessment Review Board for a 3-year term. And we're requesting this so that we have our trained member for the upcoming hearings, and that we are fulfilling our obligations to the Joint Regional Assessment Review Board by having 2 members available. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Gwendon? Okay, will anybody be willing to put the motion on the floor? Councilor Ford?
Yes, thank you. I put a motion on the floor that council reappoint Larry Herniak to the Joint Regional Assessment Review Board for a 3-year term.
All those in favor of that motion? That is carried. Second motion. Deputy Mayor Carr.
I move that council appoint Alan Schramm to the Joint Regional Assessment Review Board for a 3-year term.
All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Number 5, Peace Regional Healthcare Attraction and Retention Committee Member Appointment with Ms. Parsons.
Good evening, council. So tonight we have appointments for the Peace Regional Healthcare Attraction and Retention Committee. So recently, council established a bylaw forming this committee officially. And so in accordance with that bylaw, council, I see I have a typo in my RFD that should say 2-year term, not 3. That council appoints members to this board for a 2-year terms, which can be renewed for additional 2-year term without requirement for an absence. If a member has fulfilled their 2-year terms, it's recommended that they take a 1-year absence before reapplying, but council is able to waive that under this bylaw. Additionally, there are times where council may see fit to terminate a position of someone on the board, and one of those being if a member is absent for 3 consecutive meetings. So unfortunately, since one of our members' appointments in February of 2024, Mr. New Payne, he's been unable to attend any of the committee meetings that have been scheduled since that appointment. So administration is recommending that council terminate his appointment. We did email Mr. New Payne letting him know that this recommendation would be coming forward. Additionally, we received an application from Mr. Dan Bovair, who's interested in sitting on the committee as a member at large. So Mr. Bovair was a councillor for Northern Sunrise County and sat on this committee for quite some time as their elected official appointee. However, he did not run in the last election, and so he's no longer a member through Northern Sunrise County. But he played a large part in getting together the bid for the 2026 RH or the RPAP conference that Peace River will be hosting in October 2026. And he's very interested in continuing his work on this committee. So he's applied to be a member at large. And then finally, just as a matter of time saving, as opposed to bringing this back later, Ms. Cheryl Anderson's appointment to the committee is going to expire in January of 2026. Administration emailed her to see if she was still interested in continuing on the committee, and she is. She has been on the committee for several terms. However, would suggest that since this bylaw is new and the waiver of the 1-year or the implementation of the one-year mandatory absence is new and a deviation from the terms of reference. And Ms. Anderson's participation also in the conference planning. It would be appropriate to allow her the waiver of the one-year mandatory absence. Again, that's completely at the discretion of council whether they want to do that, but I would suggest it could be appropriate. And so we are looking for 3 motions this evening. One, to withdraw the appointment of Mr. Pradeep Newpane from the committee. One, to appoint Mr. Dan Bovair, and one to reappoint Ms. Cheryl Anderson. And I'm happy to take any questions if council has any.
Are there any questions for Ms. Parsons? If seeing none, will anyone be willing to put forward the first of the 3 motions? Deputy Mayor Carr.
I move the council withdraw the appointment of Mr. Pradeep Newpane from Peace River Regional Healthcare Attraction and Retention Committee effective immediately.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Motion number 2. Councillor Ford.
Put a motion on the floor that council appoint Mr. Dan Bovair to the Peace Regional Healthcare Attraction and Retention Committee for a 2-year term.
All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Number 3. Mr. Deuce.
I move that council appoint Ms. Cheryl Anderson to the Peace Regional Healthcare Attraction and Retention Committee for a 2-year term and waive the 1-year mandatory absence before reappointment.
All in favor of that motion? That is carried. And on to number 6, still with Ms. Parsons, the PRSDA member and clerk appointments.
Thank you, Mayor Shannon. So this one, we are part of the Peace Regional Subdivision and Development Appeal Board. So instead of having our own board, we are a part of a regional board, so we can draw from the region should we need clerks or members and our specific members not be available. And so this is just a matter, basically a housekeeping item. MMSA is the overseer of the board and the administrator, and they keep track of the terms and reappointments. And every year, as reappointments from the various municipalities come up, they send us these motions that are required to continue the board operating appropriately and having the properly appointed members. You won't know any of our members on here simply because nothing has changed and the terms are not up for expiry yet. However, I am the clerk for the town of Peace River. Councillor Ford and Monica Robinson are our appointed members. And so just looking, MMSA is seeking 4 motions tonight. One, that council approve the appointment of members to the Peace Regional Subdivision Appeal Board for a 3-year term effective November 30, 2025. I don't expect anybody to read out the full listing for that motion. That's fine. We can just say as listed. Again, another one, appointing some members for, this is going to be for a set term. Simply because they are replacing someone who is leaving their term midway through. And then they need appointment of some new clerks. And that council approved the rescission of some clerks that have since left. And so just looking for those 4 motions and happy to take any questions that council may have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Parsons? Is anyone willing to start with the motions? Councillor Deuce.
I move that council approve the appointment of the following individuals as members of the Peace Regional Subdivision and Development Appeal Board for a 3-year term effective November 30th, 2025 as presented.
All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Next motion. Mr. Forsyth,
Move that council approve the appointment of the following individuals as members of the Peace Regional Subdivision and Development Appeal Board. Serve the remainder of term, those individuals no longer serving on the board, effective November 30th, 2025, as listed.
all in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Next motion. Counselor Ford,
Put a motion on the floor that council approve the appointment of the following individuals as clerks of the Peace Regional Subdivision and Development Appeal Board effective November 30th, 2025 as presented.
all in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Final motion.
I move that council approve the recession of the following individuals as clerks of the Peace Regional Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, effective November 30, 2025, as presented.
All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Moving on to number 7, council member appointment to Peace Regional Mental Health Task Force with CAO Miller.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Request for decision before council is a slight change to the primary council member appointed to the Peace Regional Mental Health Task Force. During the November 3rd organizational meeting, Deputy Mayor Carr was appointed as the primary and Councillor Ford is serving as the alternate. Subsequent to that, Deputy Mayor indicated there's a conflict of interest or conflict of appointment, I'm sorry. He has another commitment. And so I believe Councillor Deuce has stepped up and has shown a willingness to be the primary councillor appointments. We would be looking for a motion of council to support that change.
Does anybody have any questions on that item? If not, will someone be willing to make the motion? Forsyth,
I move that council appoint Councillor Deuce as the primary member assigned to the Peace Regional Mental Health Task Force and withdraw Deputy Mayor Carr from this appointment.
all those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. On to number 8, Northern and Regional Economic Development Program funding allocation, Ms. CAO Miller.
Thank you again. So this request for decision, administration is seeking a motion of council to support our application for the Northern and Regional Economic Development grant funding. So it's also known as NRED. So far, this would be, I believe, our 4th application to this program. We have been quite successful. The government of Alberta tends to favor supporting projects that stack on top of each other or expand. So today, just for your information, we did get funding to do an investment strategy. We got funding to do the wayfinding signage strategy and partial implementation. We last time received funding for tourism destination assessment and a retail sales gap analysis, which that is still underway. And now we are looking, a new intake has happened. Intake is closes, I believe, on Friday. And this project we have an interest in pursuing is to develop a marketing strategy and an implementation. So it's not just the plan, but we are also seeking funds to implement some significant marketing strategies, largely around tourism, to draw people here. The strategy would include digital, video, print, media, pretty much everywhere we can develop, and it's intended to be a national advertising strategy as well. So Applications, we can be funded up to $300,000. It is a 50-cent matching grant. And so we could have a project in theory up to $600,000 project. At this time, we have done some work. Our business retention specialist has sought some preliminary costing for this, because we do have to support the costs for the funding that we are asking for. So we have gotten some preliminary costs for developing a marketing campaign, and then we've sought some costs to support what it would cost to actually implement the plan that we would like to move forward with. We estimate our project to be roughly $230,000, which then we would anticipate, if we're successful, $115,000 from grant funding, meaning the town's portion would be $115,000. In order to apply for this grant, we do have to show a motion of council to show council's commitment of the funds for us to be successful with the grant. The idea is, it is $115,000. I'm not really asking for any special funding other than the approval to apply for this grant, because I estimate, based on when the project grant or when the grant closes, the government's budgets are in February, they announce in March, we get opportunity to put a request for proposal higher. I'm anticipating about half the budget would get spent in 2026, and the other half would get spent in Q1 or into Q2 of 2027. So I split the funding, it would just come out of our normal operating budget for marketing. So I'm not expecting or anticipating of asking any additional funds than normally would during our marketing budget of our annual operating funds. But I do need support from council to apply for the grant funding so we can get matching funds. Anybody have any questions?
Councillor Dugan.
So I've been involved with these grants in the past, with great success, so I'm happy to see that it's coming up again. This idea, where did it come from? Was it from our business retention specialist? Was it from the economic development committee, or can you talk a little bit as to where this marketing idea came from?
I'm probably gonna say probably multiple places, because it's evident we don't market ourselves enough. I think everybody would agree with that. Definitely EgDev is, we've had this conversation multiple times. The Roger Brooks tourism assessment definitely drove home that we don't advertise ourselves enough. So I think it's just not the natural next progression.
Thank you.
So you're looking at 2026 roughly spending 50,000 of the funds, and then 2027
Correct.
Implementing the rest of the project and spending the remainder of the 50,000. So it would be over 2 years.
Well, that would be the 50,000 of the town's portion, right? Yes, but yes, I'm imagining I'm just gonna put the funds in our typical operating budget for economic development. I don't see it asking any additional funding, because this will cover our.
My next question is what kind of a timeline are we looking at for this? We've done a really poor job historically in Peace River of patting ourselves on the back or basically giving ourselves any credit to what we do. And we really need this. We really need to market ourselves a lot better, and the sooner the better. So now I just forgot my question, what I was gonna ask.
Yes, we've got time.
Yeah, sorry.
So the applications, so it all depends, obviously, if we get the funding or not. So typically they would announce after the province does their budget, which is in February. And then in March sometime, we would typically, or maybe early April, we'll get the letter. And then we'd issue the RFP to get the contractor to develop.
So more like a 2-year project, like when would it be in full swing so that we could kind of see what?
Well, I would anticipate that we want to be doing some advertising by September, or let's say fall of next year. Some of it without this project we're gonna do, because we already know we wanna start tackling some, for example, RV magazines to try to get people here next summer. But with this project, I would anticipate by September, we would be launching our campaign and then do heavy into Q1 of the next year.
And again, this is the implementation involved in this as well, not just the marketing plan, but actually facilitating and implementing.
Yes, that's correct. We've gotten some quotes from different magazines and from print and digital, yes.
Okay, are there any more other questions? Will anyone be interested in making a motion? Councilor Dukes?
I move that council approve allocation of $115,000 from tax supported operating funds as matching funds in support of the Northern and Regional Economic Development Program grant application.
Is everybody clear on the motion? If so, all those in favor? And that is carried. Number 9, proposed business recognition policy, also with CAO Miller.
Thank you again, Mayor Shannon. So this is just returning back from our last meeting and the last discussion regarding implementing a new business recognition policy. After council debated it last meeting, there was a couple of changes that were put into this policy before you for adoption. One being under 1.2, eligible recipients for celebrating an anniversary was changed to 10 years. So it starts at 10, 25, 50, 75, and 100 years. And on the back page of the policy, which is page 90 of your agenda, under 4.5, it was deemed that council wanted the business to have operated in the town for a minimum of 3 years to be eligible for the Ambassador Award. That's the award that is granted or presented at the Davies event. And then under 7.2, there, we added a portion stating that the report would also go to the EDC, the award recipients. So if there was no other changes council desires seeing, we would be looking for a motion to adopt the policy as presented. Yeah.
Now, I wasn't here obviously for this discussion, but this award is this in conjunction with the chamber? Is this an additional award over and above what the chamber does? Or-
So, Deputy Mayor, the last 2 years, the EDC committee on behalf of the town has awarded an ambassador award during the 12-foot Davies event.
Okay. One other question I have is, said something here about a $500 value for the award. I'm just wondering what kind of an award would cost $500, not to exceed $500.
So I believe the last 2 years, we've gone to the art club and purchased a painting, correct, something from there. So it was a maximum up to 500, so we didn't have to continue to come back year over year. But that has been the practice the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions? Anyone have the appetite to make the motion? Councilor Ford,
Put a motion on the floor that council adopt the business recognition policy as presented.
all those in favor of the motion? It's carried. And on to number 10, Peace Regional Energy Committee Terms of Reference with CAO Miller.
Thank you again, Commissioner. We haven't had opportunity yet to even have an orientation discussion about this committee. So it might be a little bit awkward walking through this. Because you're really not even familiar with the committee or how much you are aware of this committee. But when the nuclear started to be a conversation in the community. And we met the proponents from Energy Alberta. The council last term, the councils in the region deemed it a value for a committee to be formed, a regional committee with representation from the five councils, I think it is, to be at the table, because if a project such as the nuclear project does move forward, it's going to impact significantly our entire region. And it was felt that it was important that everybody stayed informed, everybody spoke from the same or similar song sheet when we're talking about a potential project and the impacts of it. And so originally, it kind of started as a nuclear committee, then from there it evolved to, hey, the committee's not just interested in nuclear, there could be other types of power sources that could be a conversation, such as solar power, be a conversation of interest to this committee. And so they changed the name then, and it evolved to the Peace Regional Energy Committee. And the last meeting, I'm not sure, Mayor Shannon, if you were in attendance at the last meeting, but there was a lot of discussion from there on. You weren't, okay, so there was a lot of discussion by the committee on, with the new council to do a review of the terms of reference to see if it still reflected the direction of this committee. They wanted to talk about, and councils to have a conversation and take it back to the next, energy committee meeting on the membership. So again, right now, it just started with, County Northern Lights, Northern Sunrise County, MD of Peace, and ourselves, and then from there, it evolved to including Grimshaw, Town of Grimshaw, and now there's conversations, and they would like our council's input, whether they would like to expand this even further to include, for example, the village of Berwyn, village of Nampa, and town of Manning. And then from there, they would like to talk about or get some input on the frequency of the meetings. I think right now they meet once a month, but as things are not progressing, for a while, things were progressing quite quickly. As things have slowed down a bit, it's in the regulatory's hands now. The question was, do we still need to meet every month? So they've asked to look at the terms of reference, meeting frequency, look at the committee's objectives. They want to have a conversation or us to take back the appointment of the chair and vice chair. So originally, it was deemed that the project would be, if the nuclear project was to move forward, it would be in the County of Northern Lights.
Yeah.
Thank you. County of Northern Lights. So the terms of reference felt at that time, the committee felt that they would be the greatest impacted, that they should hold the chair position. And the MD, I think, was the co-chair. So they're asking that question too. Perhaps they don't feel like they want to have the responsibility of being the chair automatically, so they would like this council to give some consideration and provide feedback on that. Also, within the terms of reference, of course, what would quorum look like? Right now, quorum, I think, is just the mayor. And so they're asking if council is open to bringing other communities in to the fold of the committee, what then would quorum look like? Because that would change if you have to have two people from every committee or just, so again, food for thought. And that, I think, is everything that they would like this council to give some consideration to. We do have a meeting at December 1st. To discuss it further. December 4th is the next rec committee or prep committee meeting, energy committee meeting, that I do need to take back council's thoughts on these few things. And so I'm not sure how you would like to proceed.
So we need to input on the chair, how often meetings are held, and if the additional communities should be included, correct?
Yeah, so I have here next, so meeting frequency, committee's objectives, what the objectives are. Appointment of chair and vice chair. Membership and quorum.
Okay, so we can just start at the top with the, we'll start with communities included. Does anyone have any comments or discussion on that? Councillor Ford.
Well, the new name says Peace Regional, so make it regional. I would invite, Berwin, Napa, Manning.
Dixonville. North Star.
They're
I was gonna say,
part of the
how far-
county.
How far out do you wanna go? Like, if you're looking at Manning from Peace River, are you looking at Fairview? Cause Fairview is actually closer to us than what Manning is.
Yeah, but the nuclear is in there,
Up there, yeah.
yeah, so I don't know if I'd look at Fairview.
So they have the three, Village of Berwin, Village of Napa, and Town of Manning. So, Councillor Ford, do you think it, they should be joining?
Yeah, I would support that because it's our immediate regional area.
Hey, anyone else want to weigh in on that?
I would be okay extending an invitation to them. I would be all right extending an invitation to them.
Oh.
How is that going to affect quorum?
Okay, so, then if we're gonna invite those three, then let's look at how it will, affect quorum.
Berwin, Napa, Manning, Town of Peace River,
Grimshaw.
Grimshaw, County of Northern Lights, Northern Sunrise.
Or it's just to say, so currently it's just one elected official from each
So that's seven,
community.
so quorum would,
What about Northern Sunrise?
I counted them.
What did
Yeah.
Oh,
So before,
yeah, yeah, so there should be 7 in total.
yeah, so you need 4.
Yeah, so your quorum would be 4.
How did you? There's three
There's
MDs.
7.
So now,
East River Grimshaw,
Peace River, Grimshaw,
three MDs.
There'd be 8, I think,
There's
there's 5 right now.
That'd be 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
8.
So quorum would have to be 5.
So quorum right now is they want somebody from each municipality. And so, are you suggesting you want to just make quorum 5? But 5 representing 5 different municipalities,
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So with that, the three that, wouldn't have to have any representation there at all. To make quorum, it's not like the before. Do you recall why that was, why the decision was made before for quorum to include, having one person be there?
I think at the time, it was a smaller group, and then we just felt that it was such a emerging and issue, they thought everybody should be at the table. But things, a lot have changed, it's evolving and.
Okay, so we are now thinking 5 for quorum and including the other 3 to bring it up to 8. Is that what I'm hearing, everybody? Okay, so the chair advice, chair, should it be the host communities? Or should it be open to everyone?
Why don't you just have a
Vote.
vote? Just like we did here with committees, if somebody wants this, and somebody else wants it. Give it to the committee. Write your name on a piece of paper, throw it in the hat and count it.
You never did that.
Okay,
I know,
so,
that's because we were all,
Agreeable.
agreeable here.
Okay, so we're gonna have, just from the floor, have it.
from the floor, and if two people want chair, then vote on it.
And again, this is continuously evolving. I see originally it was, County Northern or whatever. Northern Lights, but I see now in this latest terms that were established in July of 24, it is the chair and the vice chair says to be appointed by the committee. So that's what we're saying right now. So
Yeah.
the status quo then,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Okay, so the next one is how often do we meet? Right now, it's, I think, about every 6 weeks to 2 months.
Just every month.
Oh, still every month?
Yeah. We just had a break because, sorry, we had a break because of election and
Oh,
whatnot, right? And then the summer, I think we met in June, I think we skipped the summer. But here, right now, the current terms say the meeting shall be held on the second Thursday of the month. And we rotate between locations.
So what do you think when you, at the last meeting that I missed, was there any discussion on it, or was there any feeling of where that should be?
No, but my recommendation personally would be, even if it was quarterly, and then the chair could call the meeting if something of importance came up. I think again, it was kind of like, nothing was really happening for a while, so we're just meeting and to say, nothing's really happening. But there was a time when things were happening quite rapidly, that every meeting was of value. So that would be my recommendation, is to meet quarterly or 3 times, even miss the summer one. And then with the chair having the ability to call a meeting with notice.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
Makes sense.
Okay, we can keep that as is. Or as recommended, sorry. And that would bring us to the end of the list, Barb, correct? Oh, yeah.
The scope or something. So the purpose, so again, the purpose of the committee is to collaborate as a region to look at opportunities to bring all forms of power generation to the Peace region with a focus on nuclear power. And they are just asking us if the objectives remain or looking to expand them at all. Let me see. If she.
So it does cover everything, like what else would we? Was there any suggestions at the last meeting on that or discussion?
No, I'm sorry, I don't recall, and I'm actually just looking at the request for decision that is going forward tomorrow as an agenda item for County of Northern Lights. And it doesn't really speak to anything either, other than what I just read. I can always, in December, if we learn more, we can come back.
Okay, so we'll keep that as read by CAO Miller. Does anyone have any other questions or anything surrounding this? No, I lost my page. Councillor Ford.
So if they end up accepting the way the chair works, being that County of Northern Lights was the chair in the first place, would that affect where the administrative support would come from? So for instance, if County of Northern Lights, if they end up not being the chair, and let's say County of Peace River becomes the chair, does that mean, or should that mean that we do the administrative support? Or if it's Berwin that's the chair, Berwin does the administrative support? How does that work?
We never talked about that. I'm gonna have to ask that question. I know we did get some grant funding. The committee got some grant funding as, Alberta Community Resilience Partnership, so we all applied and it was largely for some advertising and to hire some experts and whatnot, but we may need to exercise some of that to support some of that administrative support. I'll have to ask that question.
Yeah, cause if Northern Sunrise County is not the chair, should it be mandated on them to actually have to do the administrative support? Just,
I'll have to ask that question. So what I have right now, if I may just confirm, I have yes to Berwin, Nampa, and Manning. Yes to a quorum of 5, but must be representative of 5 different municipalities. Yes to the chair and vice chair status quo, the committee appoints annually. I need to ask about the support for the administrative support. And yes to 3 times per year, Q1, Q2, Q4, with the opportunity for the chair to be able to call a meeting when required. Okay.
So if there's no more discussion or questions, does someone want to put the motion on the floor? Mr. Battlefield?
I move that council direct administration and assign council representatives to share feedback discussed during this meeting at the next PRAC meeting.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Moving on to section 9 and reports. First up, we have the Peace River Municipal Library Board meeting notes with Councillor Babalola. Is there anything you want to add to that? Anything of interest?
I would say we accept it as it is. I mean, technically I wasn't there. It was before we came on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and number 2 is the Municipal Library Board draft meeting. That was, wait a minute here. That's also before you were elected, so those 2, does anybody have questions? Perhaps one of the administration can answer. Since the last representative is no longer here. Okay, number 3, the Peace Regional Healthcare Attraction and Retention Committee draft meeting minutes. And that was is that the November 4th? Yeah, November 4th. That was at my first meeting and we discussed the upcoming conference. Would be one of the major highlights of that meeting, which is very exciting, coming up in October 2026. So if anyone has any questions on those, ask them now. If not, someone can propose the proposed motion. Rebel.
I move that council accept reports 9.1 to 9.3 for information.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. On to section 10, council communication package. Is there anything to highlight?
I might suggest that if council wanted administration to do an advocacy letter about Fairview Polytech, that this might be a time to bring forward that motion, given its contents on the communications package.
Okay, anything else that you have to recommend, Kayla, or is that it? So can anyone put forward a motion for a letter for the what is it? Peace College?
Polytechnic, it's the
They-
closure of
For
the.
the Fairview College, yeah, okay. Councillor Deuce.
You have a motion drawn up there, Ms. Parsons?
I'm getting one.
Okay, yeah, we actually talked at the conference to the mayor of Fairview, Kayla and I had a great conversation with them, and they actually asked us if we would be willing to send them a letter, so I'm glad that this came up, so.
There was something along the lines of move that council direct administration to draft a letter to the province regarding the closure of the Northwestern Polytechnic Fairview campus in Fairview.
I make that motion.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that is carried. We still need the proposed motion for moving the council accept. At 10:1.
Sure, I'll move that council accept item 10.1 for information.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to 11, notices of motion.
I have none.
There are none. Moving on to 12, comments from the public. We have no one in the gallery. Move back to number 13, closed session, which we already have moved and completed. And we're left with number 14, which is adjournment.
Hold on.
Councilor Ford moves to adjourn us at 7:53.
All in favor?
All in favor of that motion?
How come you never go those opposed first?
Carried.